So what are the best comps in TFT patch 10.10? In this video, we're going to be going over what you should be playing on this new patch. There have been quite a few changes and nerfs, and despite not being the biggest patch of the set, the meta has changed drastically. There are a bunch of new Hyperroll builds, a bunch of variations to our old favorites from before, so let's just get right into this. To start off this tier list, we have Kale Friends and Blaster Brawler in S tier. These two comps share one thing in common. They are super flexible, so you don't really know what you're going to play quite yet. Next up, we have A tier with the Hyperroll Rebel build. I'd put regular Rebels maybe in low B tier, but the Hyperroll build definitely A tier, maybe even S tier. Next up, we have Shredder, Void Brawlers, and Mech Infiltrator. Then in the B tier, we have Cybernetics and Vanguard Sniper. Vanguard Sniper has a new variation to it, so definitely you want to look out for that. Then for the compositions I'd avoid, there are Dark Stars, the Hyperroll Poppy build, Space Pirate Celestial, and the rest of these, you don't really want to play them, so I won't go into too much detail there. Lastly, we'll go over our items and then how I do the tier list. So first, we start off in S tier. We have Kale Friends. There are a ton of different builds to do this, guys. This is the most popular one. It's the 4 Chrono Kale build, and this one's generally, I think, like the easiest to play because you could pretty much just force these set units and do pretty decently. However, if you want to take your game to the next level, you'll want to be adding in variations based on whatever you hit. There are two ways to play this composition. You could either fast 8 and pretty much never roll until level 8, or you could play more aggressively, like in the video where we profiled Polt before, where you level pretty aggressively in order to get access to higher drop rates. Both playstyles work, it just depends on what you're doing in that game, but the other variations you could play is something with 3 Cybernetics, 6 Blade Master, maybe drop down to 2 Chrono or go only 1 Blaster. You could also go 4 Brawler. I've even seen a Sniper variant, but one of the most popular ones is a Karma Kale build, and we'll go over that here. So what you do, you take out some of the Chronos, you take out Ezreal, and you take out Kassadin. Then you go ahead and add in Lulu and Karma instead. So you could do something like this, where if she has the tether on Kayle, she gets a lot more attack speed. And also you'll notice we have 3 Chronos, so you could take out one of these, add in someone else. You could take out Zayah for Aurelia if you want. Lots of different things you could do here. It just really depends on what you hit. But yeah, there are tons of different variations. Go have fun with this. It is hard to play. And the next comp we have shares very similar playstyle and rolling patterns. You could either fast 8, roll for Jinx there, or you play Jinx and you level really aggressively to try to get access to her earlier. So what people do, they go either Brawler Blaster or Kale Friends. A lot of the items that you can build are shared because Kayle can use a lot of Jinx items and red buff's good in both compositions. So you pretty much could just level up really early like we discussed in a previous video. Go for one of these 2 compositions and just use whatever you hit. Because again, Brawler Blaster, tons of variations as well. You could drop down to 2 Blaster, you could drop down to 2 Brawlers, you could add in 3 Rebels, you could add in more Chrono here, you could add in Gangplank, you could even add in like the Karma Mystic variant. Tons of different things you could do. You just want to play whatever you hit. Next up, we have Hyperroll Rebels. This is one of the newer comps right now, but I think it's one of the strongest if you get it. So high risk, high reward. You pretty much want double Seraphs on Ziggs here. And Ziggs is pretty much, if you get 2 Seraphs on Ziggs, you win the game. There's no like, I've seen 1 second place out of maybe like 10 games from the top 10 players where they hyperroll Ziggs. It's crazy how strong this build is. Next up, you want Hat. It's not really necessary, but what essentially happens is Ziggs pretty much auto kills people in the early to mid game. And that enables Jinx to get her resets much, much faster. So what you want to do here is Hyperroll for Ziggs. You go for Ziggs and Malphite at stage 3-1. You could also slow roll as well. I've seen that work as well. Mismatch Socks is a big practitioner of that. So either Hyperroll on 3-1 or slow roll at level 5. Either work. You pretty much just need Ziggs level 3. And if you get Malphite, he's great as well. Next up, you'll just add in as many Rebels as you can as the game goes on. And you don't really need any of this late game stuff. MF, Kayle, they're great to have later, but you could play any Blaster instead to apply the red buff. But it's really all about the Ziggs. He's really the main carry here. But yeah, if you can't find Misfortune, don't be afraid to put in an Ezreal, Lucian, Graves. They all work. They all work. Last up for your super late game, you can add in a Gangplank. Gangplank and Ziggs are both Demolitionists. And Gangplank with Guardian Angel, right now Gangplank's probably one of the strongest legendaries. He's being splashed into almost every composition just because he's that good. Because you get a giant AoE stun. If you have a Guardian Angel on him, he's always going to go off. So it's like a no-brainer to add him to your comp. But If you hit this comp, this is probably one of the strongest in the game. It's pretty much an automatic first place. But again, you just need 4 tiers, which isn't always the easiest to get. So the regular Rebel build, you'd add in like an Aurelion Soul instead of one of these champions. Doesn't really matter which. Most people take out Malphite, but stacking Aurelion Soul isn't really the strongest right now, but it's still playable. So if you do get it, it's probably like B tier. One thing to note is that, yeah, because we can't always get double Seraphs on Ziggs. So if you want to play the regular Rebel build, it's still playable. Go ahead and do it. I'm actually going to be releasing a guide for this on Sunday, so definitely you want to be looking out for that. Next up, we have the Shredder Zayah Hyperroll build. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little easier. So essentially, this one's the same Hyperroll as before. You just want to get 3-star Zayah. You want to add in Caitlyn as well. Fiora is good if you hit her, and of course, you really need Jarvan because he gives a lot of attack speed to your whole team. Your main tank is Shen, and then you could add in Celestials or Protectors, pretty much whatever you hit. And Zayah pretty much just destroys everything. You could also go triple damage items on her. You don't have to build a defensive item on her. But this one, pretty much do not level up or roll until stage 3-1, then roll your gold all the way down. Alternatively, you could slow roll at level 5 instead. That one's a little less risk, less reward, but the high risk, high reward one is rolling down on 3-1. The reason why you want to roll down on 3-1 is because you're still level 4, so you have a higher chance of completing all the 3 stars. But if you do the slow roll, you'll eventually hit everything, but you always have the option to transition in case you can't find everything, because, you know, not everything's guaranteed in this game. Next up, we have Void Brawler. There are a bunch of different changes in this build. Last patch, we had the Mana Printer Sona build, if you guys remember that one. That one had Sona with double Chalice of Harmony and a Seraph's Embrace. But since Chalice got nerfed, we need to find a new way to make this work, and other people have already done that. What they do, they add in Demolitionists with Gangplank and Vel'Koz, and they still run 4 Brawler, though I have seen 2 Brawler variants, and instead they add in 2 more Sorcerers, so they run 4 Sorcerer and 2 Brawlers, and that one's really strong as well. They also like adding in Fizz. Fizz is an infiltrator for Kha'Zix. Oh yeah, that's another thing. You could hyperroll for this build as well, for Kha'Zix, Twisted Fate, and Malphite. And essentially what that does, it makes you have a free mid game in order to get you into the late game with the strong Vel'Koz build, because you could just build your economy all the way back up. And Kha'Zix is actually a pretty decent carry in a 3 Void build. But yeah, if you do have Kha'Zix strong, you might as well add in a Fizz. He's a pretty decent infiltrator because he's one of the only ones with crowd control effects. But this is like pretty decent. I've seen it done really well. The main stars are the Gangplank and the Vel'Koz with the Demolition Spatula, and then you'll add in defensive items on your front line. You could do like Guardian Angel on Cho'Gath. You could even put a Locket up front if you built that in the beginning. Just any defensive items good on them, like Frozen Heart, Bramble Vest, anything like that. Next up, we have Mech Infiltrator. Mech Infiltrator it's still decent. It's definitely not as strong as it was before, but if you are the only person playing it, if you get the items early, you might as well try to go for this composition still if you're uncontested. If you're uncontested, you can get like top 3 easily with decent items, and if you have perfect items, a top 2 or even a top 1. But if you don't get the perfect items and if you don't hit Fizz, it really, really hurts. You're going 8th even if you are uncontested. Perfect items, I'd say, or not perfect items. Items I would want before going this composition is maybe an early Bramble Vest. I'd say that's the most important. So if you start the game off with like a Spatula and a Bramble Vest, you probably want to go Mech Infiltrator. Well, at least consider it. If not, like if you have a Quicksilver Sash with an armor, that's another way to try to go for this comp. Pretty much, if you have Bramble Vest, QSS, or a Spatula, you want to be going for this composition. Build an early Morello if you can. You don't need to save your rod for Demolition Spatula, but like it really is the best item in the comp, and if you do get it, it's pretty much a free like 2nd place, at least, if not a 1st place. Next up on Kai'Sa, you'll want Seraphs. So what I actually did one game was Demolitionist Spatula with double Seraphs, and that was super, super strong. Yeah, apart from that, just tank items on the mech. You pretty much do nothing until level 6. Typically, you want to hit level 6 at stage 3-5 after the stage 3 carousel with 50 gold, and then you want to start slow rolling at level 6. Slow rolling just means rolling down your gold until 50. I do have an in-depth guide on Mech Pilot Infiltrator, so if you want to learn more about it, definitely check that out. I'll try to remember to leave a card on the side there. If not, check the show notes below or check out my YouTube channel and look for the Mech Pilot guide. So next up we have the B tier. This is where like comps get a little weaker. I generally don't really play B tier comps, but if you hit them, you hit them. One of them is Cybernetics. Again, the reason why it's in B tier now is because it's a lot less strong than it was before. So when you do hit everything, you're not like guaranteed to get second place anymore. So only really go for this composition if you get an early Echo and you're already going for like some sort of cybernetic Brawler Blaster Kayle build. So you have like a bunch of sword items for Aurelia, or maybe you even have Aurelia because you're going Kayle and using Aurelia as one of your Blade Masters. But until you get the Echo, you don't really want to consider going this build. So one way to play this is going fast 8. Pretty much you just do nothing until level 8, and on 4-3 you level up to level 8, roll down to 0, pray that you hit everything. It's a little risky. One of my friends still does it. He's in Master, but it's a little inconsistent. I think he drops a little bit because he's still playing like that old play style, but essentially you need Echo before even attempting to do this composition now. So next up we have the Vanguard Sniper build. This one's completely different than what we've seen before. We've taken out 2 Vanguards, so we're down from 4 to 2. And the reason why people do this is because the 4 Vanguard trait isn't that much better than the 2 Vanguard trait. And what we've added in is actually we put Demolitionist Spatula on Jace. You'll notice that we only have 7 people here, so if you don't have the Demolitionist Spatula, just put in a Rumble. If you do have the Demolitionist Spatula, you could just play any random strong unit. That could be like something like Cassidon or something like that. If you have another Celestial Spatula, you could pretty much play anything as the ace slot. But again, if you have the Demolitionist Spatula, if you don't have it, add in a Rumble. But the way this build works is that everyone has crowd control. Lulu, Jace, Gangplank, Wukong, and Ashe, they all stun everything, so that gives your Jhin a lot of time to kill everything. So the only items you really need on Jhin are the Last Whisper and Infinity Edge, pretty much so that he 1 or 2 shots everything. And you'll notice that we don't have Darkstar buff here. We could add in Mordekaiser instead of Jace, but Mordekaiser's not a really good unit, and since Jhin already does enough damage, you don't really need the Darkstar trait. Also, Mordekaiser and Karma, they don't really die that easily because Karma's in the back, so unless she gets Blitz Hook, she's not going to die, and Mordekaiser's a tank, so he's not going to die either. So that's why people are not playing the Darkstar trait. It doesn't give the buff to Jhin that quickly, so it's kind of like a waste of space. You'd rather run a better unit such as Jace instead. But yeah, this is a very interesting build. I wouldn't go this every game, but if you get a free Jhin and you have a bunch of attack damage items, like say you were going for a Jinx build with Last Whisper IE, but you just hit a Jhin randomly, you could definitely go for this, and it'd be pretty strong. Next up, we have the C tier. You really want to avoid these. I'm going to talk about a few of them, but after that, we'll skip over them. So Darkstar Sniper, if you hit it, it's very, very strong. The only issue is you take too much life points in order to hit the comp, because you really need Xerath 2 with perfect items. You need Jhin 2 with perfect items. And in order to get to that point in the game, it's going to take way, way too long, and you'll be at like 30 health, and then you lose one fight due to unlucky fight RNG, and then you're out of the game. So this is why you don't really want to play Darkstar Snipers, but maybe on Medium Legends it's going to be better. On Nicoverse it's going to be slightly better. If you just happen to hit an early Xerath and you just happen to have Rageblade QSS, go ahead and go for this build. It's still going to be very strong, but I just don't recommend really going for this. It's definitely like a high risk, high reward build. Next up we have Candyland. This comp got killed completely. Like, they got nerfed in like 3 different ways. TF got nerfed, Poppy got nerfed twice. So you really want to avoid playing this composition. You could still go for it, don't get me wrong. So if you have like 6 Poppies or something like that, you might as well go for the build and hyperroll it at stage 3-1, but I really, really do not recommend going for this just because it got super, super nerfed. But I'm not going to stop you. It's your game. You could do whatever you want, but I'm just giving you my recommendation here. These other comps we could kind of skip over. Star Guardians, I've seen some players playing them, but it's only really one person, and he's like maybe top 20. The build, Syndra got buffed slightly at 3-star Syndra, so it definitely could come back into the meta. But the thing is, Chalice of Favor got nerfed, so maybe it's not as strong as it could be. But yeah, it's like, it's playable if you get a lot of tiers, but if you get a lot of tiers, why don't you go for the Ziggs build? So that's kind of my argument there. It's still playable, but I just wouldn't recommend it. The rest of these comps I would avoid totally. Yeah, just play the S and A tier comps, and if you have to, play the B tier comps. Going into the items, we have an update to the carousel priority. So you definitely want sword, glove, then chain. These are the 3 best. It's very, very close. I don't really know which one is the absolute best out of these 3 items. I think sword is slightly better because it's a little more flexible. And since Guardian Angel is so useful on Gangplank, you definitely want to be having that. Armor, great for Guardian Angel, as we said before. It's great for Bramble Vest and Red Buff, which are 2 of the strongest early game items. And then Glove just builds all the good defensive items and all the good offensive items. So it builds Infinity Edge and Last Whisper, it builds Trap Claw, it builds QSS. Worst case, you could, if you get another glove, you could build Thieves Gloves, which is really good on a lot of different characters as your secondary carry. So it's like a super flexible item, but I think Sword is maybe slightly stronger. Next up, we have Tier. Tier is just good on the Ziggs build. There's not really any other build you could use this in, but if you get 4 tiers and you go the Ziggs build, you just win. That's why I have it up here. So if you see a lot of people going for the tier, that's the build they're going for. It's not really that useful in other compositions. It's good in Mech Infiltrator for Seraphs or Kaisa, but like people are really only going for this for the Ziggs build. So if you want to play that type of game, go for the tier, go for Ziggs, and get a win if you get 4 tiers. Next up, we have Bow. Bow's good for Kayle. It's good for Giant Slayer, good for Last Whisper. That's why it's up here, but it doesn't have that many options compared to these 3 at the top. Rod's decent as well. It could build like Morello's. It could build Rageblade for Kayle. Ionic's really good early, but you don't really want to be... If you get like double Cloak or double Rod, if you go for that, it's not the best thing to have. Hat's good, but it's mainly like a late game item, so even though it's one of the best items in the game, you don't really want it early. Then last up, we have the Cloak and the Belt. Like, Belt's really just used for red buff and Morello. That's pretty much about it. Trap Claw is good later, so if you ever get one of these, you just like are a little sad about it. It's not the end of the world. It's not that the items are bad. For example, Zephyr is one of the best items in the game, but early game, you don't want to be having these items. Next up, we have the Lilac Carousel. Kale's still the best. It's just no argument. Maybe Jinx should be higher than Jhin, though. I forgot to change this. But yeah, it's probably Kayle, Aurelia, then Jinx. The reason why Aurelia is better than Jinx early is because Cybernetics are so strong in the early game. So getting a free Cybernetic just means that you hit 3 Cybers that much easier. And Aurelia also happens to be a very, very strong unit. Next up, we have the Item Quadrant. I've made a few changes here. Bramble Vest is still the best item because it's just the best defensive item in the game, and early game, you just win if you have it. You could have like a board full of 1-stars, but yeah, Bramble Vest on a Vanguard, you just win. Demolitionist Spatula went up in value a lot. Rageblade RFC went up in value because Kale's really strong. Deathblade got a buff, so I bumped this one up a little bit. A lot of people have been building Deathblade. I think I forgot to mention this before, but on the Jinx builds and the Jhin builds, you could definitely add in a Deathblade, and it's going to be super, super strong. What else did we do? Shroud of Stillness should be higher. It's mainly like a late game item, but it's one of the best late game items, so this should definitely be bumped up a little bit. I think I moved Infinity Edge down a little bit because Deathblade might be a better option for some characters. So if you have Last Whisper, you definitely want to add in an Infinity Edge, but if you don't have Last Whisper, Deathblade is better on its own, in my opinion. I also moved Dragonclaw up a little bit because it is very useful to counter the Ziggs build. If you have a Dragonclaw on your tank, Ziggs isn't going to one-shot them, and it actually takes them a very, very long time to kill them. So if you do want to counter the Ziggs build, just add in a Dragonclaw to your build and you'll be set there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You could read about the methodology of how I make this tier list. I pretty much scout all the top 10 players and see what they play and see how often they play it and how well they're doing with it. And that's how we get that list. So let's just sum up again. S tier, Kale and Friends, Blaster Brawler. A tier, Rebels, Shredder, which is a Zayah build. Void Brawler, Mech Infiltrator. Then in B tier, Cybernetics and Vanguard Sniper. I definitely try to stick to S and A tier, and if you have like a worst case scenario, or if you hit them very freely, go for the B tier. And then C tier, I would just avoid these to be safe. Obviously, there's still times where you would play these comps, but I tend to try to stay away from them. So I do want to do a quick update on my channel. So I know that I update this meta snapshot once a week every Friday. I'm going to keep doing that, but I'm also going to be adding in a video in the second week of the patch on Fridays in order to tell you guys what the best comps are. It'll be a shorter video, but since you guys already saw the first part in this week, it'll just be to reiterate what's the best and go more in depth on how to play them. I'm also releasing a Rebel guide on Sunday, so you definitely want to look out for that. Apart from that, twitch.tv/bunnymuffinslol. I'm going to be streaming all weekend, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. US Eastern Time, so you definitely want to check that out if you want to get better at teamfight tactics. Lastly, if you guys haven't already, you definitely want to hit the subscribe button if you want to get notified for my new videos. And if you guys enjoyed this meta snapshot, go ahead, hit the like, and share it with your friends, do whatever. Post a few comments if you have some questions. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys on Sunday with the Rebel guide.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And of course, smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.